First of all, thank you, everybody. I'm excited to be here. It's a really exciting moment. I just want to let everybody know that I am not going to beatbox. I was excited to do so, but that beatboxer had 80 million views on TEDx. I don't beatbox. But what I can do is kind of talk about what life is and where you can go from there. And hopefully I can get 80 million. But let me tell you something. It's not about getting 80 million views that really matters, right? Because what really matters is how many people actually watch your stuff and actually make a difference in their own lives to actually get there and do something with it. So if you have 5 people and 5 people do 5 great things and help other people, that's worth more than 80 million who don't do anything. So just think about that. And it's funny, the person who was setting up the TEDx here, Dobbin, said, "We want you to do a speech." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it on procrastination." And I told her I'll get to it at some point. Anyway, just funny to get into that. It's a little funny, I know. So something else to think about is Insta-famous. People get Insta-famous, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm Insta-famous, I'm everywhere." But you know what? It's not about that. Because unfortunately, you got to be ahead of the trend. Because Insta-famous today is not the same as Insta-famous 10 years ago, because guess what? 10 years ago, that was the beginning of it all, when you had the opportunity to be first early adopter. As we all know, anyone know what a tissue is called? A Kleenex. Anybody know what the number 2 brand is? No. That's the thing. You want to be first before you do anything in this world. And so what I want to do is we're going to explain obstacles and stress in my life and where I've gone and what my journey has been to get where I am currently. And I wanted to quote one of my favorite friends, bands, I guess. I tried so hard and got so far, but sometimes you have to fall to get right back up. Kind of tweet someone's quote there, but the whole idea is, you know, you got to try really hard and to get where you got to go. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about a couple of different things about where I've been and what I've done and how I got to where I am and what those things did to get me to where I am. And hopefully you can do the same for yourself, because everybody in here has had a tough time. I don't care who you are, what you are, where you've been, how rich or poor you are, you've had a tough time somewhere in your life. You can all close your eyes and think about it and say, "Yep, that was a tough time." But everybody here, and I know a couple of people in here who have had tough times who I know have gotten out of them, and you become better from it and because of it. And so I'll tell you some stories. Here's my first one. My first job in corporate, I guess, was retail. I worked for an office retail company. You picked which one. There's only 3 of them out there, or were. And I had long hair, black nails, this very chain from 30 years ago, and I was into really awesome 9 Inch Nails type music. It was awesome. And I walked into Staples and I said, "I'd like to get a job." And the guy said, "Nope." "Why not?" He says, "We're not hiring." I said, "But there's that sign right there. It says hiring." He goes, "Yeah, we're taking that down in 5 minutes." I said, "Oh, okay, well, bye." And I walked out. Later on, I'll come back to that story in just a second. I went back to my next story, which goes back to the first one. And I went on to Key Club, which is an international organization to help other people. And I was talking, and one of my buddies at my parents' house said, "Hey, we're going to do a sponsorship, and we're going to raise money from a basketball game." I had 200 people in my parents' backyard with tents and everything. And they actually got porta-johns brought to my parents' house because they thought they didn't want anyone 200 people in their house. It was kind of funny. And I said, "All right, we're going to have a basketball game." I don't play basketball. I have no idea. I'm actually like a hockey guy. I guess it was the same, right? Hockey stick, hoop, I don't know. So guess what? I was like, I can do basketball. And they put me against this guy. His name is Neil. And he plays basketball. Well, I lost. Well, the bet was if I lose, we're going to donate X dollar to a charity, and you're going to get your hair cut. So they went in the back, and they chopped up my hair. This is when I had it, of course. And it was all lumpy. So I was all embarrassed. I came back at my parents' house, and I put my hat back on, and my mom comes over, and she goes, Dave, what's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Nothing," kind of like hiding my hair. And she took off my hat and was like, in the back was all chunks taken out. So my mom had to reshave the whole thing. All done, all gone. That was the end of my goth days. I was over. Now I'm like GQ, right? So I went from that to that. It was kind of cool. My transformation, like a metamorphosis. So guess what happens? I go back to Staples. That place that we really love, and I do actually enjoy being there. And I went in, and guess what? They hired me. And I was like, same guy. Now I got the job because I had a nice white shirt on, and I did what I was supposed to do. Well, I worked there for a couple of years, and they fired me because they forgot that I was underage when they hired me. They didn't know that because I presented as an adult. They never even checked my stuff. But yet I was a top salesman. And what was interesting was at the time, it was about just trying and not giving up. I was told no, and I went back, and I got it again. So I just wanted to say that was kind of cool. The next thing was another story, which is interesting, is about learning about listening to others. My wife would say I sometimes don't listen perfectly, but I do the best I can. It's a funny thing. I just do what I can. But I'll tell you this story, and I think I should learn from it myself, and I'll share it with you. So I like to go hiking, and there I was hiking and having a grand old time. My mom and dad bought me these brand new waterproof boots. They were great. They're waterproof only, though, up to about the ankle. That's important for later. Just use your imagination. So as I'm walking through the woods, like Paul Bunyan, all excited, right? I'm like, look, Dad, look, Mom, I'm walking through the streams. My feet are dry. And then all of a sudden, right, there was a hole in the stream, and I went knee deep. And my dad just looks at me, my mom, and they're like, Dave, we told you so. And I'm like, I know, but they're waterproof. Well, water goes in really easily when it's above your knee. I took my boot off and I dumped it, and water piled out, because once it goes in, it doesn't come back out. It's waterproof. It's like a balloon. And I had to hike another 5 miles getting blisters because I didn't listen. And so my point to that story is you got to listen to other people sometimes, even though you think you know what you're doing. And even if the label says something, it doesn't really mean it's really waterproof. It's only waterproof up to 3 inches. So you always got to think about everything else around you, what you're doing, and say, hey, you know what? Maybe I probably should listen to somebody who has better experience. Because even at that age, I thought I knew everything. But even at my age, I still don't know everything. And so life will always throw you curveballs. I'm going to tell you, and this is important because at the end, it'll all make sense. So I decided, I was in high school, I was an engineering student. And I got accepted to all these engineering schools, mostly with full scholarships, by the way. And then one for film. Guess where I went? I went one for film. And you can just imagine my mom and dad are like, wow, XYZ school, full scholarship, good job, engineering, film. I'm like, yeah, I got a half scholarship though. So I went to film school. And that was an interesting thing. I did film. And then when I realized that I was doing that, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go into business now. So I got a business major. Then I went back to college again, and I got my master's in business. I just did a little bit of everything. And it taught me a lot because each degree has a different set of problems and stresses. Film school is interesting because I was told, well, I'll tell you this, one of my roommates did a film which I can't describe, very out there. And unfortunately, it got an A, and it was really horribly shot. I got a C, and mine was perfect. And he said, yeah, but the first one made a lot of money, would have made a lot of money if you translate grades into money, into box office. And even though it was like TEDx XX, we'll call it, it was horribly shot, but would have made money. Yours, although beautifully shot, would not have made money. I was like, oh, what? But I did your rubric. I did everything you were supposed to do. So that taught me, you know what? Sometimes you can't just do everything that everyone tells you. You got to do something different that's going to make it in this world. And so that was something I learned, that not always do you have to follow the rules. But then I had an art teacher who told me you can't break the rules until you know the rules. So just something else to think about too. You can't necessarily go and break all these artistic and even business rules if you don't know what the rules are. So the next thing was being a father of 4 is awesome. I just want to share that with everybody. It's the coolest thing in the entire world. It goes through a life cycle. In the beginning, they think you're the most amazing dad in the world. By the time they hit 16 or 17, their girlfriends become the most amazing thing in the world. And I'm like, well, what about me? Where's my hug? And that kind of makes me feel, sad, to be honest with you. But it makes you say, you know what? I wonder if I did that to my dad and my mom. Like, was I like that? And then I go full circle, and I'm like, now in my 40s, I'm like, wait, I wish I could do what I did before I was 16 and 17. And so being a dad is fun because as I'm working on big business deals and talking to important special people, I get a phone call from the school. Daddy, this is my other daughter, right? Daddy, where are you? I'm like, I'm at work. Where are you? She's like, I'm at school. I'm like, how did you use the phone in 6th grade? She's like, oh, I went to the main office. I asked them if I can call you. I'm like, okay, what's up? Like, how you doing? She's like, can you Venmo the ice cream truck who's standing outside the building $15, please? I bought myself and someone else ice cream. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're supposed to be in class. And so I stepped out of my meeting for Venmoing. I don't even have Venmo. So I run to my wife and I'm like, can you Venmo? And she's like, oh my God. And I tell the guy I'm talking to, you got to wait a minute. I got a crisis. I have an ice cream sandwich emergency. But my point was, I still have to get my job done. And yet stress, going back to the slide, is about, you got all this stuff hitting you all over the place and you got to keep trucking through. She got her ice cream, by the way. The next thing I did was I became a teacher for 10 years. That was a lot of fun. I met a lot of different people. But what I realized was that I really wanted to make a difference somewhere else. But I said to my wife, I said, I haven't done enough in my life. I haven't changed the world. And she told me something, which was, it's not how many people you change, but the people that you do change, did you change them enough? And she said, if you taught 1,000 kids, that's 1,000 kids. That's better than 1 million who don't listen. And so I felt special that I was able to make a difference with that. And so sometimes, again, it's not always about the number of people, but the impact that you make. Next story was kind of cool. I was a councilman, but before I became that, I moved into this town. I said, I'm going to be a councilman. So I walked up to the mayor's office. Within 2 months of moving to the town, didn't know anybody. I walked in, knocked on the door. I said, Mayor, my name's David. I want to be a councilman. He says, yeah, you and like 50 other people. And I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm here and let's do it. Like, make me the councilman. He goes, you just can't do that. I'm like, well, I'm already here and I heard that you got 50 people. Well, they're not here. So let's try it. So he says, well, you got to make a name for yourself. I'm like, oh, all right. So guess what I did? And I'm not making this number up. I knocked on 5,000 doors in this town. I walked for 3 or 4 months every single day, knocking on 5,000 doors, maybe more, but I just know it was 5,000 at the minimum. And everyone started talking. And the mayor said, all right, you can run. And I ran and I won. So it's just about, you got to just go out there and do it because you can. I was told no by a ton of people. 4,999 people I spoke to were kind of like, okay, you're some guy. We don't even know who you are. I'm like, I know. I had one lady have me come into her house. She goes, Dave, come in, sit down. I'm like, uh-oh. So she sat me down, and I was like, all right. And she said, what can you do for me? And I said, I don't know. Let's talk. So I talked for a long time, and I was able to make some changes for her. Real quick, what I can say is that I then set up a company called Friendly Connections, and I am currently a CEO. And that took a lot of work because a lot of people said it was going to fail. And more importantly, I was told you can't set up a business in 60 days. And I said, oh, now I can because you said that. So it said, I'm going to do it now because you told me I can't do it. I met 2 people who were philanthropists. They gave me $40,000 cash, no contract, no interest. Here you go, just do and change the world. And to this day, I took that money and I grew a whole company of almost 50 people. And so that was really exciting for me. What I can say is that one of the things that we did with Friendly Connections is we grew. We started growing exponentially. It was awesome. But then with Medicaid changes and with other changes in state government and other government changing, it started to kind of slow down. We lost our office staff. All of them disappeared for different reasons, some good. Some went back to college. Had a great time with that. But now we have to rebuild. And again, with the rest of my life that I had before, when some things go wrong, you don't just walk away. I could walk away. I'll be working retail again. So I said, no, we're going to fight and we're going to work hard. So what we did was we're now setting up 2 other businesses that are related in mental health and family practice of health. So it's about when things go bad, you got to try it again and do something different. And you just can't stop and give up. And so while all that was happening, we got a new house. I got a new office. I had a baby on the way and a broken leg all in the same month. And I and my wife were like, we're done. This is crazy. It's never going to work. and we decided that we were going to make it work. And that was almost a year and a half ago. And yet the business is finally coming back. We're working hard, and we're moving along. So I'm going to leave you with this. One of the things that you have to do in life is understand that life is going to be stressful. It's going to throw stuff at you. You're going to have problems. Things are going to go wrong, and you're going to have stories for yourselves that are just amazing. But what you have to do is learn and realize that everything that you do is going to just somehow come back inside of you and make you try that much harder. Because I live my life for the end of my life. And what I mean by that is I live so that when I'm at the end of my life, I can look back and I can say to myself, what have I done to help myself and those around me? Because if I haven't done that, then I haven't done what I'm supposed to do on this earth, which is to help the world. And you don't have to help 80 million. You only have to help 8, 9, or 10 around you, who in turn, like the butterfly effect, help others. And I will tell you that it's one of the most humbling things to be up here, because there was times in my life where I thought I was hosed. I was on Medicaid food stamps, and I said to myself, you got to get out of it. And that is what success is taking a problem, analyzing that problem, and having a future. I'll tell you this, I said to my wife, I said, trust me, in 4 or 5 years, we're going to get to something. Just blind faith, just do it. She's like, okay, that's crazy, but we'll do it. Because you got to have a plan. Not everything is tomorrow. Sometimes it's 5 years out. And no matter what life throws at you, how do you succeed is really the question. And you have to take risks. You have to work towards the end goal. You have to push yourself. You have to be a life survivor, which means survive life itself. Don't forget this. Wars will go on around you. Economies will succeed and will fail. That has happened for thousands of years. It will never change. You can't sit there and complain about the news all the time, because it will always be there. What you got to do is worry about yourself first, which is something people don't like to say because it sounds selfish, but it's like when you're on the airplane and you're sitting next to a kid, right? And the oxygen drops. What do they tell you to do? They say, put it on yourself first and then help the kid. Because if you can't help yourself first, how can you help the kid who can't reach it? And so it is helping others by helping yourself, if in fact you do in the end help other people. And I'm asking everybody in this world that what you have to do is make this world a better place by making yourself a better place, and by making your world a better place, and by helping others. And so I will leave you with this, if we go to the end there real quick, is this. Never give up, no matter how stressful life becomes, because at some point it will always succeed. It will always make it. You just have to try. And another famous singer is, you only got one shot, one opportunity. You got once in a lifetime. So this is your time to actually do something with your life and to make the world a better place, because if you don't, no one else is really going to do it. You got to try hard. And if there's anything that you've learned from today, it's that you have it within yourself to actually make it and do it. What you got to do is push aside the stress and the craziness of everything and say, I know where I'm going, I know what I'm doing, and I know how to get there. And let all the stuff on the side stay to the side. So be happy with yourself, be happy with others, and whatever you do, just make this world a better place to live in, and do it through making a lot of friendly connections. Thank you very much for everybody's time.